This is the huller, and it takes off the parchment skin layer. So we're going to remove this yellow skin layer that's crackly like parchment. And it comes out down here. It's just a little fluff, some cellulose. This bag the chute will drop the cellulose down there. There's an auger inside of the huller that bangs the beans with the parchment layer on and knocks the parchment layer off. And then there's a fan that takes the parchment layer into there. So as we move it, it's going to get kind of loud. The beans will fall into here without the parchment layer. The parchment will go into the rubbish bin. Like that's one pass. And I typically do a second pass just to take that left. There are a few that still have the parchment on them, and also to polish the beans down just a little bit nicer. They just look nicer. They roast a little bit cleaner. There's a little less silver skin on there, so that there's less chaff flying out during the roasting process. It doesn't really do anything to impact the flavor. It just makes the beans a little bit nicer.
So once we're done with the hulling, we have to sort through and pick out kind of the rubbishy beans and the bad beans. And there's all different kinds of defects and faults that can make the cup of coffee taste less than stellar. Some of the things that we find right away are what are known as Quaker beans. These are, a Quaker bean looks like this. It's almost like a piece of foam. It's very soft, almost like foam rubber. And that's a fault that's easy to identify because of the color difference and also the texture. The cause of that is excessive moisture in the drying process. So maybe this bean was exposed to a drop of water that fell on it, maybe a little bit of rain passed over and a drop landed on this and stayed on it while the rest of the coffee was almost dry, and then it all got put into a burlap bag. So you're going to have these no matter what, unless you mechanically dry the coffee to perfection and bring it inside. If it's dried in the air with the sun, you get these things, but they're easy to pull out. Another fault that we pull out at this point is a black bean. And the black bean is usually caused by a carbohydrate deficiency and some other problems, but it can also be a clue to improper fermentation. And you can have some bacteria and molds and things that have gotten into there and shriveled it up and turned it black. That's going to give it a really bad taste, a really nasty, bitter, sour taste, and a lot of off tastes. And by off, it could be anything from sweat socks to sewer to who knows what. The Quaker, just when you roast it, it stays white, and you'd know it right away in a bag of roasted coffee. It doesn't really add or detract from the flavor. It's just kind of, it's just there. This is the outer fruit skin plus the inner parchment skin, plus you can see the seed inside there. It just, after 2 passes, the skin was still so tight that it just didn't want to come off, and you'll have those. And then other things like bean chips, fruit skin, parchment bits, terribly chipped beans, beans that have big dings out of them, split beans. They're just all rubbishy things that you really don't want. They're going to either alter the flavor or alter the way the coffee roasts. You know, it's just not. This isn't going to roast properly because it's forked, so it's going to burn on the ends rather than tumble around like it should. This one's still inside the fruit and parchment skin. It's going to catch fire in the roaster and probably over roast. That's shriveled up a little bit. This is a big chip out of the top, so it's going to burn. This one is half brown and half okay. So they're basically just compost at this point, and that's what we do with them. When we separate it out, we put them out on the compost pile and let them add nitrogen back in.
In contrast,
this is, I'll hold up a handful of this. In contrast, this is a handful of the good hulled beans. And what I'm noticing right away is there's a high percentage of pea berry in this. And you can see they're pretty uniformly green-blue, and they're quite hard. If I were to bite into them, I'd break a tooth. And it's not to say that they're absolutely perfect, and they're certainly not uniform in size, but at first blush, these look pretty darn good. And I can also tell by the smell that they're the right humidity, the right moisture level, and also that they're going to probably taste pretty darn good. When a coffee smells a little funny as the green unroasted coffee, you can get an idea that it's not going to be that grand as a drinking coffee.
and again, what makes the pea berry, and how do you, and what is exactly pea berry?
That's a good question. Pea berries, let me find a couple and I'll hold them up. Pea berries are the beans that look like rugby balls. So you've got these beans that look like rugby balls, and these would be the pea berries. And you have these beans, which have a flat side on one side and a rounded side on the other. Typically what's going on inside the fruit is the fruit develops like that. So you've got the two flat sides.
Lower, there.
You've got the two flat sides in the middle, and the reason they're flat is that as the fruit develops, that internal pressure creates the flat side, and the outside of the fruit rounds off. Anywhere from 5 to 10% of the time, one of those two seeds dies very early in the growth process, and the remaining seed doesn't have any internal pressure. So instead of forming a flat side in the middle, it bulges out and becomes that rounded bean. All the energy that was going to go into two seeds is still going into the fruit, and it creates that one bulged out bean, the pea berry. So it's a denser seed, less air bubbles inside the meat of the coffee, and therefore it has more flavor and more caffeine. A lot of people say that they get addicted to pea berry. They really only like pea berry coffee anymore. And what they don't realize is that what they really are enjoying at that point is the intensity of flavor. It's about 30% more intense, and the additional amount of caffeine, because it can be up to 25% more caffeine than the regular seeds.
could they get basically the same effect by just taking the regular coffee and using more grounds?
Well, yeah, you could do that. That might be an expensive way to do it. You'd be burning through a lot more coffee. The other way they could do it, if they really do like pea berries, you just use about 25% fewer grounds. So if you were going to put 4 scoops in, put 3 in. You're going to get the same flavor that you'd get if you had the flat-sided beans from the pea berry. It's going to be the same intensity. That's actually an economical way to use pea berry because you're getting a great cup of coffee for 25% less than if it were 100% pea berry. And it ends up making the more expensive pea berry about the same price as the regular bag of coffee.
Excellent.
Recording whenever you're ready. Ah! Dave! Oh, okay. Woo!